Thank you everyone for joining today. I am really excited to have Gavin here from ILA to talk to us about the newest version of our integration to Salesforce. So my name is Natalie Jackson. I am the marketing director for the Influence marketing platform. I know I've seen many of your faces as I look through the attendee list, and I'm excited to have so many of you here join us. And our plan for today is really just to have Gavin kind of show us around, tell us some cool things that are happening and what's new. But I very much want this to be an interactive experience for those of you who are in attendance. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I'll be sure to tee those up for Gavin so that we can answer them. But definitely feel free to ask away, stop us if you've got a specific use case, and we will be happy to answer that. So without further ado, Gavin, I'll kick it over to you for just a second to introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Like she said, my name is Gavin Colassa. I am a business analyst at ILI Pro. And our mission here is kind of to ensure that Salesforce is doing what it does best, and we help complement what Influence does, what it does best. We want to create a seamless integration to make that experience as easy as possible for all users in Salesforce, as well as the admins that may make changes or updates within the platform. And today we're kind of going to walk through what a lead looks like, some changes within here that look familiar and some things that don't look so familiar. And we'll kind of navigate how to see those things, how to check them, how to update, and answer any questions along the way.
Awesome. Great. Well, without further ado, then let's get started, Gavin. One of the first questions that I'm going to ask you, and usually this is kind of where, when we talk to people about the Salesforce integration, where they like to start too, is just talking a little bit about how you get data out of Salesforce and into Influence. Really, like, how do you pick which of your Salesforce records sync over to Influence? And I know there are some options here, but I'd love to just start the conversation by talking about like where you can set up which records get synced from Salesforce to Influence. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll start with talking about leads, for example. A lot of businesses will use leads as their primary source of where data goes to back and forth before they move it to a contact in Salesforce. We know in Influence, though, everything moves to the contact level. So both the lead and contacts in Salesforce will link up to the contact in Influence. And we have a little slide here we can pull up. It's very simple, very quick to show how it looks in here. Left side is Salesforce, right side is Influence marketing platform. As you can see here, we have contacts and leads. All these terms here, these two should look familiar for all Salesforce users. Then there's groups and group members. These do sync as well. As you can see here, we do push this data to Influence, and that of course includes the email metrics. That term might be a little unfamiliar, and to compare that to the Influence side, that equals the campaigns. So if you want to see the metrics for your email metrics, for your campaigns, those will show up as email metrics in Salesforce. And also you can view those as individual email metrics for your contacts and leads, and we'll show what that looks like in the actual Salesforce environment to show you a little example of what that shows like. As far as the sync schedule goes, anything from Salesforce updates will be sent over to Influence immediately. Any changes in the Influence side will change overnightly. And that kind of covers those sync up.
Yeah, and can we go back and take a look too at some options in terms of, you know, if I sync up Influence in Salesforce, does it sync over everything, or how do I pick and choose what records in Salesforce sync over to Influence?
Yeah, a lot of that comes from the installation preferences. The Salesforce admin will work with us. I'll help them with the install to decide what will be the kind of the golden directory from the initial sync. So what data we pull over from the start, and then we'll kind of talk through as far as the fields look like. As far as fields go, pretty much most of the Salesforce default fields from Influence will sync up naturally, such as, you know, first, last name, company name, title, etc. Additional custom fields can be added to the Influence section, which will show down here. And those fields can kind of be chosen, selected, which ones you want to sync as far as if you want to add them or not. And that kind of data can be chosen manually.
Sure. And so Influence, as you know, has up to 250 custom fields. If I wanted to sync data from Salesforce into Influence's custom fields, I would sync those over here. Is that right?
That's correct. As you add those Influence, you can do a little section up here for the custom field maps, and you can actually have those mapped down here for easy access for the sales teams.
Great, great. And so if I type it in here, is it going to push over to Influence automatically?
Yes, immediately.
Awesome. So if I have a salesperson who might be updating a record and they come in here and they update a field, it's going to push over into Influence and let me mark it off of it. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, great. So what other kinds of custom data points or sync settings can I make on the Salesforce side to control what gets synced over to Influence?
So as far as for the sales team side, anything on this page here they kind of have control over and what they can choose to populate or not populate. When it comes to the Salesforce admin, we can work a bit more with them on any kind of changes they can make. From here, we can see the connector admin panel. We'll jump over here real quick. And from here, it kind of just shows you kind of what's in data that kind of syncs all, or what can be synced or not synced. For here, for example, we show that it is synced as a lead by default. We are syncing all. And this section here kind of answers some more questions around the syncability. We do have a support section here too with nice little fun buttons. Hopefully that answers the question.
Sure, yeah. So by default, it's going to sync over everything within the entity. So if I sync over leads, it's going to sync over everybody, right?
Correct.
And what if I want to put, say, just a certain person into an influence group? So I've got my sync all, but I also have certain groups that I want people to belong to. A good use case, for example, that people tend to ask us about is, let's say you want to create a very specific influence group that is carrying a nurture over the course of 365 days. And it's usually triggered by, say, a salesperson working a lead. Once they've worked that lead to the point where they don't want to expend the energy, but the lead is still a good opportunity, what they'll do is they'll put that person into an influence group so the influence marketing platform can pick up the nurture from there. If I were a salesperson, where would I say on Alan's record here have the ability to not just sync him to everything in influence, but also to sync him into a specific group?
Yeah, definitely. So we know that a lot of times salespeople want to be able to control the communication to their leads and their contacts and ensure that they're added to the right groups for the right campaigns at the right time. And that's kind of a big deal for some groups. On this section here, we have the actual group members here. For example, if this was titled, let's say, Nurtured Group for 2018 to 2022, you can actually add them yourself here. You can add or remove different contacts or leads to these groups here manually, and this will sync over to Influence. As far as creating new or deleting any groups that you don't want anymore, those would be added directly into Influence by the marketing team. So kind of work in tandem with them. But as far as direct group membership, you can manage that right here, which is super convenient.
And I see that there's a suppression group too. So if let's say, for example, we're trying to nurture Alan, we've got him in a workflow and influence, and Alan picks up the phone and calls and says, hey, I'm interested in learning more. At that point in time, I can suppress him from a group as well. Is that right?
That is a great question. Let's test it real quick, because I believe this actually can be suppressed right here. If you edit right there, hit save, and boom, that'll sync right over.
Great. So that's a nice way too. Let's take a look at some other different features that we might want to take a look at here. So we've kind of covered a little bit about how salespeople can control communications to their existing leads or to their contacts. But if I'm a salesperson, and this happens a lot, and I want to know what the marketing team is actually doing with my leads, right? So I want to see that the marketing team is sending them emails. I want to see what the marketing team is sending. And I also want to see sort of how that person is engaging. Can you show me here on Alan's record the kinds of data that's going to get pulled back from Influence so that I can make some smart sales decisions?
Yeah, definitely. So one quick, easy access to see any metrics between those marketing emails to different leads and contacts is this button right here. It'll say contact email metrics in the contacts or lead email metrics in the lead section. If we click that, we can see exactly which subject line was sent for the email, when it was sent, as well as related data for viewed, clicked, complained, suppressed, bounced. We can see all of that data in here. It'll be check marked to give us the exact notion of when this, or if it happened or if it was viewed per the contact, which is super convenient for us.
Yeah, that's great information. And so it kind of helps a salesperson know both what the person that they're working has been sent and if they actually engaged with it. So if I wanted to know, for example, whether or not Alan actually viewed the email that the marketing team sent yesterday before I make a phone call to ask him about this Wednesday morning special, I've got some great data here to kind of inform how that sales call is going to go, right?
Perfect, exactly.
Yeah. Is there any other data from Influence that you want to show us and how it shows off here in Salesforce?
Sure. As far as these ones, let me see if I covered everything that I want to cover. This main lead page is kind of the main thing we wanted to show. This is the most commonly used thing for any sales team member within Salesforce. they're going to balance between leads and contacts, and this data is kind of the most relevant for them. Custom field maps, we'll kind of handle that with the sales admin, or the Salesforce admin. They'll kind of work with us on what fields need to be added custom-wise. If there's a certain date for retrieval, if there's a certain position title they want to cover, we'll cover that with them. Influence email metrics, once again, that tab is more for the campaign metrics. If you want to see the campaign groups, you can, of course, click that.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at it and see kind of what's going on here.
Yeah, so it'll show you the subject line for it, tells you the number of recipients, views, unique views, status, kind of goes to show you where the marketing team is at with your current campaign. And you can, of course, contact back and say, hey, what's going on with that? Or, of course, you can click on it and see the metrics if you want the breakdown of all the exact metrics of what's available.
Okay, so this is where you could even get some marketing data, right? So if I were a marketing user and I wanted to be able to use everything holistically, as we know, a lot of marketers want to kind of do their CRM marketing as well as their marketing automation platform work in the same pane of existence. Like, this is a good place for us to go back and look at some metrics, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I could see like a VP of sales using this as well to kind of get a high level sense of not just how people are engaging at the individual level, but how a certain campaign might be performing as well.
Exactly, and it helps kind of gear towards who to contact or what information they find most valuable. It's great to see, did this subject line pull in more views? Did it pull in more clicks? It's a great way to analyze it from a kind of higher overview.
Yeah, and I think especially just to your point too, if you're a salesperson trying to figure out what campaign messaging might resonate best, you've got access to some of the data without having to jump into the full influence marketing platform and pull across lots of different types of campaigns, right?
Exactly, it's so easy.
I would love to see too, what different things can you see as part of this connector? I know there's a tab along the top that's kind of looking at influence, the connector admin, influence groups. Can you talk us through the different components that we're seeing here?
Yeah, definitely. We'll kind of go through all the tabs just very quickly. I don't want to kind of take everyone's time and kind of navigate them through everything too much, but quick little screen here we developed with Influence ILA. It was a quick button. If you click that, it goes straight to the marketing platform login. Looks very familiar.
Yeah.
Next one was the connector admin. We kind of briefly covered this one. This one's more kind of just data for us to make sure that everything is synced up and working beautifully. And these buttons, of course, will take you to our documentation, which is our wiki. In the FAQ, this goes to the iLight homepage, and support. If you have any questions directly with the app, we're more than happy to answer those questions, resolve any concerns that may come up. This section is for recent groups. Any groups that are created to influence, you can see those in here. Very easy to access and see if any groups are missing.
And if we go back to that too, some things that that I really liked here that you can just see from a high level is, for example, whether or not there's like an auto response attached to a group. So you might know, for example, really quickly, if that's a group that's available to send maybe a manual message to versus a group that if I add someone to that group, they're going to receive an automated message, which is always nice to know ahead of time because you never know, right? If I'm doing work at 3 a.m., I may not want someone to get automatically sent an email.
Exactly. You have to get a little preview on what's going on the back end.
Yeah. But I also like here that it's got, you've got your group count. So you can kind of quickly see how many people are part of this group and as well as how many are available. So it kind of gives you a sense of how many of them are active versus how many of them may be in a held or suppressed or bounced state too.
Exactly.
So lots of really useful bits of information here. Great.
We love info here.
Yeah. And some nice high level collaborative experiences. I think, like, personally, one of my favorite things about having your CRM system like Salesforce synced up to your marketing automation platform like Influence is there's a ton of opportunity to kind of bridge that sales and marketing void, right? Like, there's a ton of opportunity for the sales and marketing teams to be working in closer tandem. And I find that that kind of works toward the sales and marketing alignment that a lot of organizations struggle with, but it definitely fills a lot of those gaps to have an easy place for both groups to see the information.
Exactly. Sometimes that seamless integration is lacking between communication between both teams, and this want to make it as easy as possible to kind of see what the other one's doing, see the metrics, not having to kind of have that knowledge gap, and this kind of helps solve that problem, we think, between both platforms together.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's keep going. I know you were going to show us on the metrics as well, so we'll see how that looks too.
Awesome. Let's jump on over there. check these again. As you can see, same thing as the last week, kind of goes over those detailed things. We kind of covered this a little bit, but once again, it's a quick view to see the new metrics that are active for the campaigns. These are all drafts right now, but if they were like published or presented to customers, we actually have more information to kind of go over. And it's a quick, easy glance to see what's going on the influence side.
Yeah. And again, I think a great opportunity for the sales team to know what the marketing team is doing. And I feel like that sometimes is like part of the gap that leads to challenges with sales and marketing alignment, is that those two teams don't know what the other team is doing.
Exactly.
And so here, at least you've got like a really clear sense. And a salesperson using Salesforce could jump in and theoretically see this, right?
Yep, exactly. Quick, easy access.
Awesome. Great. So we mentioned a little bit about the custom field maps, just to take a look at that tab so we know it's there. It's just a great way for you to kind of use those different fields to kind of sync back and forth. But it looks like this is a pretty easy setup. Is it easy enough for a marketer to say add a field or, kind of make an update to the existing mapping?
It is. I would say, honestly, it takes seconds to get this done as far as adding the field or creating an influence first. Once you have that custom field created there, you can come over here. It'll kind of populate itself under the section here. You just say, which custom field do you want to map? You just pick it. And as long as that field has a matching data type in Salesforce, which will be handled by the Salesforce admin, you kind of go down here, you pick it there. We'll just say this, for example. You hit save, and that'll add the field for you to the section. As long as the Salesforce admin follows the right steps to kind of get it all configured correctly, you can add those fields, I would say, in under a minute. It's very quick.
That's great. So one of the things that we find happens a lot is the marketing team undergoes a customer journey mapping exercise and discovers that they're not capturing all of the data points in their CRM system that they need to do these sophisticated marketing campaigns that they want to do. So it's really easy for them to then go back and retroactively add a field and update it into Emfluence to do more targeted marketing, just to make sure I understood you correctly.
Exactly. Sometimes those default fields just aren't quite enough to get the data across as far as what sales or marketing wants to see. And here we want to kind of help solve that gap and make sure we have the fields available to be added. So anything that's missing or that they need to acquire, we can make sure it gets properly given to each system as needed.
Yeah, awesome. Great. What about under the contacts and leads? Is there anything we need to know about under those two tabs?
Same thing as before. The view should be exactly the same as far as any Salesforce user has used before. Nothing too unfamiliar here. Once again, the biggest changes are just within here as far as the buttons added here, the group members section, and of course the included fields that are syncing up at this time.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And the same thing, obviously, for the contacts as well, right?
Precisely.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else that you feel like we really need to see today?
I think we covered all the major points that we were excited to kind of show off and convey over. Of course, we're happy to answer any questions or whatever else comes up.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I love best here is that because you can easily create these custom fields and kind of sync those up, bringing them over into, say, Influence and using our query builder to create behavior-based triggers or data-based triggers, right? So I can kind of quickly pull this data over into Influence, set up an automation segment, and trigger off a quick series of emails based on specific data points in Salesforce, which is really powerful.
Exactly. Having that control over the campaigns and kind of who gets contacted at what time, I think is huge. And that's kind of what we want to push for Influence to kind of keep that priority on, because you guys are so good at that. And we love to see that.
Yeah, but it's so nice to see that, like, how you can architect the data on the Salesforce side to make that part of your job easier.
Exactly.
That's a really nice thing to have in place. Well, I know we've got some people on who may have questions, so I would love to see if any of you in the audience have any questions that you want to ask or any particular functionality that you're interested in seeing. So I'll open it up to you all right now. Definitely, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. There's also a Q&A that you'll see on there as well. So we'll give you a second to kind of process and think through. Definitely feel free to ask a question right now if you've got one.
Awesome. Any questions that I can't answer? I do have some members from my team on that can help. We have Russ, our developer. He's worked countless hours on this software, and I would love to have him jump in at any time to answer questions that maybe I can't quite cover.
Sure. Or I know Russ has definitely got a lot of things to say. So if you've got anything you want to jump in and say as well, Russ, just feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And so if anyone out there is interested in taking a deeper look at the Salesforce side of the influence marketing platform, definitely feel free to reach out to me or to reach out to anyone at Influence. We've got a person with a great question here. So Katie says, my Salesforce View doesn't look like the screen. Do I have all the functionality or do I need an upgrade? That's a great question. Gavin, you want to take that one?
Sure, let me think here. So for the Salesforce view, I think that means as far as how this view right here looks. And I will say this is kind of a default example of what a Salesforce view could look like. A lot of times different organizations will set it up customized to what makes most sense for their business. I mean, for example, this button can actually be placed pretty much anywhere else on the screen. We prefer it right here just because it's the most common place to find it. But a lot of these sections can be customized by the Salesforce admin.
Okay, great. Does she need to upgrade, or is this going to work with the versions of Salesforce?
As long as we're on Salesforce Lightning, we should be completely fine. If we're on Classic still, then we would want to move over to Lightning to have this function correctly.
Okay, great.
And
great.
Russ, keep me honest.
Russ, do you have anything you want to add on that? I don't see Russ adding anything yet. David has a question. So for current Influence customers using the existing integration, what does it look like for them to transition to this new version?
Yeah, that's a great question. To have that integration switch, we actually have a kind of a schedule we'll make and have some questions answered ahead of time to ensure we have the data we need to log on with or as the Salesforce admin to ensure we can properly back up and uninstall or have them back up. And then we'll uninstall the old Influence or connector version, and we'll make sure we have this version fully installed. We'll kind of walk through step by step to make sure we have everything added correctly with them, make sure everything's syncing as it should. It's a full hands-on process for both teams. We'll make sure that it's very quick, easy, and simple for the Salesforce admin to move the integration over to.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions here in the audience? Keep them coming through the chat. We've got time.
Yeah, I appreciate the questions. These are great.
Give everybody just a second more. Let's see, Q&A. Okay, so are there other companies out there with products to integrate to Salesforce and Influence? And you know, kind of, I think the question just this is from Scott. So Scott, if I don't answer it correctly, keep me honest here on how I'm asking it. What are the benefits of this solution versus other companies out there that might integrate Salesforce and Influence together?
I think for us is as far as connector goes, we kind of built a kind of a specialized custom almost integration that is the pretty much, I think, the only one in the market that does what it does. I don't know of any myself that does exactly what we do here as far as connecting between Salesforce to the Influence platform directly and making it as seamless and easy as possible. If there are, though, we'd love to find them.
Sure. So the vision with this integration is really just to make the data management side easy. Is that right?
Correct.
Sure. Okay, great. Any other questions anyone has? Give everybody a second if anybody wants to roll in any more. And of course, if anyone here would like to go into deeper detail or see something that's a little bit more personalized, I'm happy to team up with Gavin. You can reach out to us and we'll see what makes the most sense for you. Happy to show you the Influence marketing platform as well as some of the specific elements of how Salesforce works with it in your environment. If I don't see any other questions, however, and I'll keep talking. You keep asking if you have one. We will send out this recording at the end of the session as soon as it's ready to go. And we'll also have, some additional information that we'll share. And of course, both of us are always willing to answer any specific questions. So you'll have a way to ask us when we send a follow-up email. So keep an eye on your email for the recording as well as for an opportunity to ask some additional questions. Otherwise, if we don't have any more questions, Gavin, we could wrap up a little bit early. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you walking us through this new Salesforce integration.
Perfect. And thank you for hosting this and everyone for taking the time to kind of jump in here and have some interest in looking through this new software. We're excited to kind of showcase and release. And yeah, just appreciate your time and all this effort.
All right. I don't see any more questions, Gavin. So that gives you back 15 minutes of your day. Thanks again for joining us. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.